everybody. Welcome to another episode of Biz and Breakthroughs. Very excited to have Ms. Dominique Danielle, Brand Strategist, here with us today to talk about brand strategy and all of the things to make your Instagram look 1,000 times better, plus talking about faith and just doing this journey with God. So I'm super excited to have you join us today. Like I was telling you before we actually hit the record button, that I think that this is definitely an important conversation that I don't hear a lot of people talking about in the industry. One of the things that has definitely helped me stay in my creative flow and just feel like I have a sense of purpose and fulfillment in building my brand is trusting God with the process, is consulting him and trusting the ideas and the creative juice that he gives me that allows me to put out what I put out to the world. So I'm very excited to talk with you about this today. I think, first of all, I love your Instagram. I think you're beautiful. I think everything that you're doing is great. I think you're definitely talented. So it's been a lot of inspiration on my end just from looking at what you're doing to like up my game. You know, I'm like, oh, I got to get it together. I got to get my feet together. Dominique said it got to be cute, y'all. So he's definitely going to help us pull our stuff all the way together. But I definitely want to give you a chance to just share your journey about what led you to actually doing what you do today, being a brand strategist.
It's so weird. Literally right before you and I talked, I was talking to, I feel like everyone needs, somebody that can help them within their business or anything, just in life, just somebody else other than them. So even though I am a brand strategist, I was talking to my brand strategist and she kind of like took me down like a memory lane trip, and I'm not good at that. I never want to share like my story because I'm just like, I think I'm boring. So she's like going through all of this stuff. So with my journey, I actually started I went to school for fashion. I went to the Art Institute of Philadelphia, and I have a degree in fashion marketing. So there is where I kind of learned, like, it was like the beginning of branding for me, and I didn't even know it. So I know how to sew and all of that stuff. So my thought process for going to school for fashion marketing was I wanted to learn the business aspect of, fashion and business and all of that. So that's why I went for marketing. So when I got out of school, I was like, I had these big dreams of, having this big fashion line, working in New York and working at these fashion companies. That was my dream. So when that didn't happen, I was like, all I did was get a ton of debt from this school. I didn't get anything. I didn't leave with anything but with debt. But as I started to build my brand. So I started my brand in 2014, Dominique Danielle, and then I made clothes for people, t-shirts and gowns and dresses and things. And it wasn't until I started doing that I realized that my foundation from school helped me with how things should look, advertising, things that are aesthetically pleasing, like even small things, to little details of how things should be lined up a certain kind of way. I learned all of that in school. And it wasn't until I went to school for fashion, and I always had like a passion to help women. I've always been like this go-getter, like I'm gonna try it. Like if I got a gift or something, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna try it, see if it works. So when I was in like this other fashion program with this girl, and met up with some people that were like-minded into fashion or whatever, and I was just learning all of these skills. And she had this thing called like a mastermind, and I thought it was so dope because she brought people together and we just talked about our different ideas and stuff. So I adopted that and started doing that with my friends, and we met once a month for a year straight, and we just brainstormed about our dreams and our goals. And I was like the spearhead of that, and I helped them like figure. We all helped each other, but I was the one like, no, you should do this, we should do this, really helping and speaking into them. And then
I love that.
Yeah, so the branding, it really kind of just came, it really came naturally because I was helping them with their branding, and because I was so into Instagram and figuring out how Instagram worked back then. And like I said, it was 2014 leading up to now. Um, and it wasn't until probably a couple years ago, I'm working with my pastor, and I was working at a church, and he brought me on, and he's like, "Yeah, I see what you're doing on Instagram. Like, let's do it for me." So
Right.
I it just really came naturally. You know how you can really be in a grace space, and that is when like God just grace you to do something, and it's like it just flows, it just comes. So he hit me one day, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't really like what I'm seeing on here." So, and I'm like, oh, like how can what can I do? So I said, okay. I realized that the team that I was working with, they had no direction. Like they had no brand direction. They didn't have like he didn't have any of that in place.
Mhm.
So I literally was like, I have to set a foundation for his brand. And I thought back to all of the stuff that I helped my friends with, went back to fashion school and all of that. And I was like, this thing needs to be cohesive. And I looked at what he already had out in the world and pieced that thing all together and came up with like a brand guide for him.
Mhm.
And we sent that out to the media team, the video team, people, the graphics team. Like, so I was like, this is a thing. I can, I can do this. Like,
Mhm.
and it just, like I said, it came so natural, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. So that is like kind of how that was birthed. And to be honest, I was like, and you stop me if I'm rambling.
No, you okay.
I was struggling because, like I said, I always had this dream to be in fashion.
Mhm.
And my pastor, he had like some event or whatever, and we were there, and he was speaking to the people that were there, and he said, you know, you have to sacrifice your Isaac, and your
Mhm.
Isaac is like something that you know, or a sacrifice is something that you have to give up, something that you're holding on to, and God is just want to see if that thing that you love and cherish so much, will you give it up for what I have for you, or are you going to hold on to it? So when he said that, I just was like sitting, and I'm supposed to be working because I do his social media and stuff. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just like bawling,
Mhm.
crying, because it hit me that I have to give up the fashion. And I already
Mhm.
was sensing that and feeling that, but
Mhm.
it's just a part of me. It's just who I am. I just love fashion. So it was like a bittersweet moment that I had. It was like I was crying like happy because I felt the relief of the pressure, like, okay, I can let this go. But also it was a crying thing, like I gotta give up my fashion. And you know, God can bring that thing back around, but he wants to see if you're going to give it up. And in that moment, I knew that I had to give up the fashion. And that's when I made the decision to start doing the branding and the brand strategy.
I love all of that. I love how, God will just take us through all of these different transitions to be where he really has called us to be. And even with my background being in the beauty industry, it
Mhm.
was like I always just had this thing. Once I started realizing I can actually make a real business out of it, now I'm like doing all types of research and all types of studying and going through this coaching program and learning from this person to figure out like, okay, well, how do I build this into a real business? Like what's required? And
Mhm.
that's where my heart and soul really was. That really led me to being like, well, I actually think people need help with the business side. It's a lot of talent. I don't think anyone needs to know how to do another sewing.
Mhm.
I think what they need to do is learn how to build a real
For
business.
sure.
But it was this process of teaching my first class to cosmetology students with my voice shaking and I'm scared and I don't know how to do a good presentation.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of these different things. So I love how he provided you with the education, but then put you in an environment where he can begin to grow you and nurture you into being in a
100%.
position to do what you're doing now. And
Yep.
it does get scary. I like how you said letting go of your Isaac because I feel like like when God has called us to do something, it's not always going to look like how we imagined it. But I think there's so much fulfillment in just doing things His way. And I think the biggest thing for me, because I transitioned from having a salon, then doing a boutique, and now going back to having a salon. It's like He had to bring me back full circle because I had to come back to a place of really letting go of my own Isaac and my own frustration of wanting to do things my way. And like, okay, God, if you're sitting me here in this space, it's for a reason. And I think even for you with the love of fashion, especially doing a brand, being a brand strategist, it's like, well, you kind of get the best of both worlds. Because when people do brand photo shoots, guess who can like help them pick their outfits?
100%.
It's like God was like, listen, I just need you to let it go in this way, but I'm still gonna let you have some fun, you know. And that's the beautiful thing about God, is that He just loves us enough to keep us happy, even when it makes us uncomfortable. And I'm glad that you just gave your yes, because that is really one of the scariest things, and one of the biggest things that people really have to do with building a brand. So kudos to you, honey. I'm gonna cry if I get a good word. So don't feel bad at all. I need to talk a little bit about like just like living your life purpose, or I don't want to say living, but like showcasing your purpose through your brand. I know for me, every time I level up internally, my brand goes with me. And the beautiful thing about being a coach, that I think I have a lot of flexibility with, is I can change whatever I want whenever I want, you know? So it's a lot of freedom to play. Like if I want to change my colors or my fonts, it's like I kind of could do whatever I want. I know it gets a little bit trickier when people have a product-based business, because they are looking for brand recognition, and you know, they have all of these other things, and they may trademark their logo so they can never go back and like change it, or you know, switch it up too much without losing people being familiar with what they're building. But I think for service-based providers, which is who I primarily help, we have that freedom and flexibility to just allow our brands to evolve with us. And I think with me, showcasing my purpose is really just allowing myself to be everything that God has called me to be, making the pivots that I need to make when necessary, changing something if I feel like something is off spiritually or energetically. I'm like, okay, I know God is calling something to switch up, let me do it. But what does that actually mean to you? Because I know with you being faith-based and being a brand strategist, I'm sure when you work with clients, you're like, oh, God has called you to do this, and we need to present this in a beautiful way. But what does that look like for you to really showcase someone's purpose through their brand?
I feel like that is the only way to do it. Like
I love that.
you should showcase your purpose through your brand, because that's what we're called to do. That's what we're here to do. Like our lives are not our own, and when we see it that way, like we're here to serve. We're here to, of course, serve God, and He called us to serve other people. That is why we're here. Everything that we do is to give Him glory and to bring something into this world, into this earth for other people. We're all interdependent on one another. So, you know, if you're not using if you're not utilizing your purpose in that way and bringing it into your brand, and it's like, I don't know what you're doing. You know? My pastor, and I'm going to refer to church and my pastor because that's what I do on a daily. Like I work for a church, I work for a pastor, and I do branding and marketing in church. So it's kind of like it's all married together for me. But he was talking about, he had a sermon that was called For the Streets. And he was saying how, you know, a lot of times we think that our gifts only are supposed to work in the church. And it's like, that, how could that be? Because majority of the world is not in the church. So
Right.
how are we bringing people to Christ? How are we? So it's a thing where you have to use whatever gift and talent that God gave you, and use it on the street that you're in. So let's say if you are in healthcare or whatever, and your purpose is to help people with their health in the healthcare industry, you do that, and you also bring the word of God, and you also encourage them with the word or whatever. So whatever lane or street that you're in, that is your God-given purpose, and you bring God into that so that He can get the glory, and we can introduce somebody else to being saved and living a life for Jesus. And that is just, I feel like it's a trickle down effect. So if you're not doing that, I feel like, what are you doing? Are you really living out your purpose? You know, as a believer. So,
I absolutely agree. I like that too, for the streets. That's a really cool title for the sermon. But
mhm,
I definitely agree. I think it was like eye opening for me. And one thing that I can say I do have an ability to do is when someone talks about their business, I can always see like the purpose. And I always ask people, I'm not just, beauty biz owners, but anybody that I work with is like, well, what are your gifts that are tied to what God has called you to create? Because I think when we understand that, that allows us to show up not only more authentically, but actually utilize them. Like if you don't know what you are supposed to be using, it's going to be hard to support people in the way that you're supposed to support them. So, like back to you talking about someone in the healthcare industry, it's like, okay, I know they may be thinking, well, how can I bring the word of God? Like you even praying for a sick patient, you even someone may not even be a believer and you just feel called by the Holy Spirit to like lay hands on them and pray over them. That can bring them to Christ. That can
mhm,
bring them
yeah,
closer to God because they were a witness to his miracles through you and you showing up understanding your gift. So
100%.
I think it's just so important that if someone isn't sure like how their purpose is tied to their brand, start with your gifts because that'll
Mhm,
give you a clear direction of how you're supposed to be serving on a deeper level, and you can begin to talk about those type of things. But I think for me, just allowing people into my world, sharing my spiritual thoughts, my spiritual journey in conjunction with everything that I know about business,
mhm,
that's how I use my gifts. That's how I live my purpose. So I hope everyone that is listening that may not be sure of like, well, how do I begin to do that? Like, just start with God, with what God has put within you, and don't be afraid to express that online because people hide. I'm guilty as charged. I was really conflicted, feeling like I had to be one way or the other, like these
mhm,
extremes. Like I either got to be all the way in the world or I got to
mhm,
be all the way spiritual. Like I couldn't blend the two when
yeah,
really I am a blend of the two.
mhm,
I not be me? Otherwise it's never gonna feel real and it's always gonna feel like
exactly.
it's missing. So I think people just need to really start there with understanding what God has put within them. So I just love that. I think that's absolutely amazing. I do believe that when building a brand, you should always be led by God.
Mhm,
And I know it can get tricky for some people, especially when it comes to this whole obedience thing. I know for me, it was like, oh, I'm gonna have to be this, goody two shoes, and I'm never gonna be able to have no fun. I'm not gonna be able to dress cute. Life is gonna be boring. But that it was really the complete opposite. Even though I
mhm,
had to let go of a lot of things that quote unquote like felt good when I did them, or
yes,
like were not the most appropriate things, but within letting go of that, who God has really called me to be now and what he's blessed me with my husband, with my family, with my
yeah,
business, it's like I can never let go of that fulfillment to go back to anything that would not be serving him. But I
right.
know that it was tricky for me to like
Mhm,
trust what God was telling me to do versus what I thought I needed to do.
mhm,
When it comes to creative direction, and we get into this thing online of, oh no, she's doing that over there, or she's using this font, or they're laying out their feed like this, like not allowing myself to really trust that God is saying, I'm sending you inspiration, but I need you to craft this in your own way. I'm not
yeah,
telling you to go copy somebody's stuff. I'm not telling you that you need to be like them to be successful. I'm just sparking something within you that is like, oh, I'm kind of feeling that, but how can I really make it my own? So
mhm.
think about, or like, what are your thoughts about consulting God for creative direction and really just trusting, especially when it comes to working for a church? I know that can get, not going to say tricky, but you have to be really intentional and careful because unfortunately, I think with churches, like if they make a wrong move, it's like they're condemned. God
Mhm,
will
mhm,
put out something that represents something where people like, oh, that's demonic, or you shouldn't, like, how Mike Todd was really just kind of going through all of
yeah, yeah,
uh, with some of the creative decisions
mhm.
that he made. But like, how do you trust that? And what does it look like to really talk to God about creative direction?
I literally just talked to my friend about this. We were talking about, first of all, with like, we talked about, being close to God, and, you having these ideas and things like that, and you put something out, and then you maybe have to deal with like cancel culture or
Mhm.
whatever like that. And I said to her, like, what I always, because don't get me wrong, you can put something out or you can say something and you'll feel like, oh my goodness, should I have done that? Was that the right thing? But what always centers me back is people did not put me where I'm at. People did not. This is a God thing. God leads and guides me on my daily. He just uses people as resources, and God is the source. So if I know that anything that I'm trying to create or whatever, and I know I have good intentions and, you know, my motives are pure or whatever, and I put it out there, like nobody can cancel me because I'm a child of God. Like God, that's it. Like even with, and we literally just talked about that Mike Todd thing with the thing what he did with the eyes or whatever. It's like, and she was like, yo, he really just pressed through that and just kept going. I said, because people can't cancel him. Like
Right.
he's called. God graced him to do what he's doing. And whoever is for him is for him. And my pastor always say, like, God, we're all gonna mess up. We're all gonna do something because we are not perfect, but God will restore your reputation in the minds of those who matter. So if my reputation is still bad in your eyes, then I ain't for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
when it comes to the creativity piece, it's like I said, if you have pure intentions, I don't know what scripture it is, but it's like if you had that clean hands and a pure heart, then that's all you can do is
Mhm.
keep that posture and
Yeah.
stay close to God and know what your motives are, know what your intentions are, and just rock out with that. And if something doesn't work, you gotta move on. Move on and try something else. So I'm really big
Mhm.
on that too. Like I know my mom had said something like you doing something else. So you did, and I'm like, listen, I'm 37 years old. I have a whole long list of like I don't believe that I just was called to just do one thing.
Right.
I don't think that. So I
Mhm.
feel like because I serve this huge big God, you think he gonna give me one gift?
Right.
I don't. Mm-mm. He's too big to just limit me to just one thing. And every we have we're growing, so we have
Mhm.
different seasons and different roles that we're called to in our lives. And in this season, he might have me doing this. The next one, he may have me doing this. But I feel like all of it is a part of our purpose and what we're called to do. And my pastor always say, like, purpose is not just like one thing. Is your purpose or your role in that season of your life. Because I can be doing this right now, like, and then 3 years from now, God could be calling me to do something else. But everything that He has us doing, I feel like it's all a part of His plan and all a part of our purpose and our learning to develop us and grow us so that He's preparing us for the next. So whatever I'm doing now, it may not be manifesting in my life right now, but once the time gets here, it's like, oh, I know how to do that because I was practicing and doing it then. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer the question. When I talk about God and purpose, I get excited.
No, that was really good. I definitely agree. I think I love that about purpose. I do believe that it evolves. I do think that it's always this underlying like overhead purpose that we have. Like I know for me, helping people heal, helping people
Mhm.
understand their own spiritual journey, helping people really do what God has called them to do through entrepreneurship. It's always like this underlying purpose, but it manifests in so many different
Yeah.
expressions,
Mhm.
and so who I am today is definitely not who I used to be, but I was kind of doing, like you said, being prepared and doing something similar. But like I always tell my husband, I don't know what in the world I'm gonna be doing 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. I don't know who I'm gonna be as an old lady and what kind of person
Yeah.
God has for me. I think it's really just the willingness to be obedient and to constantly talk to him about what I'm doing. And that's a big thing that I'm learning through just making my own mistakes and
Yeah.
rushing the process sometimes is like, am I consulting God before I make a move? So that way
Mhm.
I can stay in alignment with my purpose and do what He's called me to do. And I think for people that is really looking for that creative direction, it really just starts with seeking. It really just starts with sitting still and asking God, okay, what do you want me to do next? And then trusting whatever that comes in, because it's going to look different for all of us. So I just think that's really, really, really dope. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the fundamentals of building a brand, because as a business coach, of course, I see a lot of things, but I know as a brand strategist, specifically when it comes to branding, you've seen more than I've seen. So what
Mhm.
are some elements of a six-figure brand that you feel like most entrepreneurs really fail to implement? And like, what are some tips to get them started? I know you mentioned with the pastor, he was missing like, just something simple like a brand guideline book. I don't really see a lot of people even doing that. Everyone wants to just go and pick a logo or pick a couple of fonts and some colors, but they don't really know what
Yes.
real official brand guidelines consist of. And like you said, these things had to go out to multiple sources, and that thing should be able to support those different things. So like, what do you feel like people are like failing to implement, and how can they get headed in the right direction?
I feel like they fail to implement that. Like branding is really the foundation before you start. And you mentioned that you said like people will get their logo and it's like they get the idea. They're like, okay, this is what I wanted. This is the logo, and then they go. But when you're building a brand, you kind of got to start with your vision, your mission, all of those things. What is the story behind the brand? Because people connect with that. What are the core values? Because anytime that your brand is going to evolve and things like that. But when you go back to your core, what are the values? What is this thing? What does this brand actually represent? Because it can be easy to fall into seeing what other people are doing or whatever. And then you're like, oh, I want to try that. Oh, I want to try that. And it doesn't even align with our core values. Like this has absolutely nothing to do with our brand. It's just a hot trend right now. And like,
Mhm.
it's okay to do those things, but it should always be funneled through the core values. So, what does this thing stand for? What is our vision? What is our mission? Who are we trying to serve? What are these people's pain point? What are we bringing to them that's going to solve their problem? And I think that a lot of times when people are building a brand, we just skip to the fun part. We
Mhm.
skip to, let me slap this logo up here and let me attach the name to it. And then, but it's a whole like science behind it. Like, what do the colors mean? Because colors evoke different emotions in people when you see them. Um, what are the fonts and things like squiggly fonts? It's like, can we even read that? Like, what does that even say? So I think that they skip the foundational thing, the story behind the brand, the thing that is gonna, because we are emotional creatures and
Yeah.
beings. So we connect with emotion. So if you don't have that and you don't know that or understand what type of emotion that your brand is going to evoke, it's like how do you know who you're talking to? How do you know who you're going to sell to? How do you know who you're going to serve if you don't even have these foundational things? So it's always starting with your story, your core values, your mission, your vision, and then you can start to build on, okay, this is what I want this to look like. This is the colors that I want to use. These are the fonts. And then you don't deviate from those things because you got a great new idea. You always want to bring it back to that. And like you said, the foundations that you lay, you will always be able to go back to when you start to add people to your team. This is what we represent. This is who we are as a company, as a brand. So when you are creating, when you are marketing, when you're doing all of these things, you always go back to this and funnel everything out through that so that everything is aligned. Because when there's no alignment, it's like if you don't know who you're talking to, now
Right.
you're trying to talk to everybody. And now it's like we cannot serve everybody. It's impossible. Everybody has a niche. Everyone has people that they are called to. So when you're like, oh, I serve everybody, it's like you can't do that. Now I'm confused. Now nobody's buying because we don't know what this is. So it's like you have to get really clear on what it is that you're trying to do or want to convey with your
Mhm.
brand. And then once you get all of that packaged and narrowed down, now I feel like you're ready to present it to the world. A lot of times with businesses, we work backwards. And you know, because we already launched, we already didn't put this out, and now it's like we might have hit a plateau, you know what I mean? We spiked up, and now it's like we're not growing because now we got to work backwards because we didn't have that foundation in place.
I totally agree. One of the things that we're doing now, I have a mastermind called the Six Figure Club. So all November, we're actually establishing brand guidelines and working on brand positioning and understanding brand messaging and all of those foundational pieces. But I think for me, because like no one ever exposed me to knowing that part of business, and especially for my beauty business professionals, everything is just revolved around, do good hair, take good pictures, put it out there, and all of a sudden you're magically booked. But business goes so much deeper. And I think the people that can master those elements are the people that find stability, find the recognition that they're looking for as a brand, that honestly take their businesses a little bit more seriously because they're willing to do those foundational portions
100%.
and those things that are important. And I think for being a 6-figure or 7-figure entrepreneur, you have to establish certain things if you want to actually be building a real business that can sustain the test of time. You'll find yourself winging, like you said, okay, we've gotten to a certain level of success, but then we don't know how to go surpass that, or we don't even know what we've done to get there.
Yeah.
So I just think it's so important to be willing to do the work. And I think for me, even as I evolve, like I mentioned before, and want to change something with my brand, I've learned to come back to that place of what is the foundational groundwork that I need to create now and that I need to establish. And is it alignment with who I am at my core? Like you said, those core values and what I feel like God is birthing within me that He wants me to bring to the world. Like, is it alignment with that thing? Let me not just reach, and then put some mess together and then wonder why I have to keep starting over. So
Yes.
I think that's super dope. Tell the whole world, please, y'all, listen to Dominique and groundwork.
Yeah, don't skip it. Don't skip it. It's very important.
Anyway. And it's nothing worse than like putting all your stuff out to the world and then realizing I got to tear it all down and rebuild. And I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
Like I was just telling my husband, I was like, I am sick of starting over. So let me do what I got to do the right way.
Yeah.
So I got to keep coming back to do it anyway. So
100%.
I think that's super dope. I do want to talk about getting a really cute Instagram feed. I think that your brain is definitely going to work differently because you do have that fashion background. Like you said, you can look and see how things can line up. But I know for me, I do like looking at a good Instagram feed. And it doesn't have to be like this checkerboard design or anything like that. But when things just flow and they work well together, it puts something in my mind from a consumer or a client perspective of, oh, they got their stuff together. I kind of like that. Or I like what they have going on. It looks professional. Honestly, I can trust it a little bit more because it's not just thrown together. And I think, unfortunately, there are so many talented people that are really great at whatever they do or they sell. But because they don't know how to visually present their brands in a good way, they are overlooked all the time. So what are some things that we can do, some simple ways just to make our Instagram more visually beautiful? And of course, I'm going to be listening for myself.
Yeah. So it all goes back to number one, your branding, your guidelines, your colors, all of that. So when you have those things in place, what colors you're going to use, the type of font that you're going to use, and things like that. Now you can infuse that into your feed, and that goes back to your core values and what is it that the messaging, what you are trying to portray. Like, say for instance, if you're trying to build a luxury hair brand or whatever, now you got to think about what's luxury. What does luxury look like? What are brands that I would consider luxury? So I look at different brands like a Louis or a Gucci or something like that. It's like, what makes these brands luxury? And then you just start to dissect the different things. Look how crisp their pictures are. Look how when they do put something on their Instagram, it's pretty much like cohesive. The color scheme like matches or whatever. Really have to pay attention to little details. I'm the type of person, and it's like a gift and a curse, because I'm the person that, like, you can have something so pretty right in front of you, and I notice the picture crooked in the background of the picture. And it's like, that's not even a focal point, but those things matter when you're trying to build something that looks aesthetically pleasing. So what I do with my grid, I work on Canva a lot. And like I said, I'll take my color scheme, the colors that are already in my brands, and I'll make sure anything that I'm trying to post, if it's a photo, if it's a video, everything in that little square that we have on IG or whatever needs to represent the color scheme, the font, the brand, the everything. So I know that I'm really big on like earth tones, muted tones, black, grays, like that kind of thing. So I'm not gonna go and in front of the bright pink wall and just post a picture because I look cute in there. But in my head, that doesn't go. It doesn't make my feed. So I just gotta save that for me or just put it in my stories. You know what I mean? So all of those things matter. Even down to like, so if you're planning a photo shoot or something, I even plan like the type of clothes that I'm going to wear, the colors that I'm going to wear, because I know this is for my Instagram feed. So I need to pick out the colors and clothes that go with the color scheme of my brand. So when it comes to like, even with hair, whatever your branding is for your salon or your whatever, your hair care, what does the salon look like? Does it represent the color scheme that you already have in your business? That way, when you are doing your reels or your videos and you're dialing up people's hair, is it all cohesive with what my brand represents? It's so weird. I feel like I keep saying this. It all goes back to your color scheme. When you think about something that's visually pleasing, it's like, does it match? Does it flow? And then some brands, they don't have that. They may be bright and colorful, but that's the scheme that's what you gotta stick to. So if you had a brand that was full of colors and pinks and all of that, something that's dull and muted probably wouldn't fit. You know what I mean? So when you think about it, you just have to really think about like, even when if you're home in your house and you're decorating or whatever, you get things that pretty much kind of go together, the colors or whatever like that. And you always want to keep that top of mind, what matches. And don't get me wrong, everything doesn't have to match to a T. You can have some things that are a little different, but it just needs to be cohesive. So I would say always pay attention to the details. Like when you're on Canva, you can mix and match and see what looks good, what doesn't look good. I remember when I first started doing this, just with my brand, and at the time I was working with, because I knew really nothing about Instagram. This was probably like 2016 or so. And at that point, it didn't really matter what your grid and all of that stuff looked like. But I was working with someone, and she was like doing my website and helped me with my logo and stuff. So she was like posting for me on social, and I had saw something, and I was like, "Oh, this is a cute quote or whatever," and I had posted it, and she immediately, like, she was like, "This doesn't go," and I'm like staring. I was like, "Why doesn't this go? Like, I don't." It's a cute thing, and she like literally had to point out, it does not match the color scheme. The font, it doesn't match. It just doesn't go along with your brand. And until that clicked in my head, like I struggled a little bit, because I'm just like, because in my mind it's like, it speaks to me. I like it, but in her mind it's like, yeah, you can like it, and it does probably speak to you, but it does not align with your brand and where you're trying to go and your color scheme and all of that stuff. So once I got that, it's like, oh, it's almost like dressing with your clothes. You match it, have it look at a certain kind of way. So it's like you infuse all of that into your feed. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think most people they do forget about those little minor details, and even if you have to rebrand yourself, just start it off new. And like you said, kind of visually put it together to make sure that it is cohesive. I think a lot of people don't pay attention to like what a platform is actually utilized for. So Instagram, originally it was
Yes.
for photographers. It went from like, okay,
Mhm.
we're just sharing pictures of our cats and our kids, but then
Mhm.
photographers and people that post a lot of visually appealing content begin to take over Instagram. And so we would go look and see how people would piece together their photos and all of these other things. Now, even though we've transitioned into Instagram wanting to be more like TikTok with the reels, even if we compare Instagram to TikTok with just the videos, the short videos, Instagram is always looking for more aesthetically pleasing content,
Yeah.
not just entertaining content.
Mhm.
And so they take over when it comes to things looking aesthetically nice. So I'm
Yeah.
an Instagram girly. I'm not a TikTok girly.
Yeah.
I'll tell
Me
you guys real
too.
quick. I like pretty things. And when I go to someone's page, I'm like, is it a hot mess or is it cohesive and it's pretty? Everything doesn't have to be luxury, but just
Mhm.
does it feel good when I look at it? Can I get
Yes.
an understanding of the energy behind this brand? Because everything does hold energy. When I go to someone's page, it either feels fun or it feels luxury or it feels modern or it
Yeah.
feels, more spiritual and more godly if it's a
Yeah.
lot of faith-based content or informative or educational, but everything has its own energy to it. And I
But
think
you just said something. Sorry to cut you off. You just said
that
something. You said when I go on there, how does it make me feel? We
Mhm.
have to, like I said earlier, we are emotionally driven by things. And
Right.
it's how, when you look at it, is it like, because sometimes I look on people's pages and I'm like, it's too much. I can't even think when I'm on here, and it immediately turned me off. And then sometimes I look on people's pages and I'm like, this is too put together. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just all looks bland. And
Yeah.
then you see some pages, and it's like, oh wow, this has a nice flow.
Mhm.
So, but
Mhm.
like, it's all in how did that make me feel when I first laid eyes on it. And that is the whole thing with building a brand, because the emotion that you're going to evoke and the type of
Mhm.
customer or the type of person that you want to patronize your brand, that goes back to your niche and your target audience and all that. Who is the type of, am I your customer? Or is it the person that doesn't really care about how anything looks? They will just, you know what I mean? Those are the things that you have to know when you're building and stuff like that, and that emotion, and how is it making it feel, how is it making you feel, because the number one thing we want is a repeat customer. So if I came to your
Mhm.
page and it made me feel good, and it then in turn made me want to buy, am I going to come back? So it
Mhm.
always goes back to that feeling, like when I go to Target, I'm cool. I can walk around in
Right.
there. When I go
Mhm.
to Walmart, I'm like, why did I enter this store? Get me in and out. I don't want to be here. It's
Mhm.
the emotion that it evokes. So sorry to cut you off when you
No,
said
you're okay. I like how you said too, is it bland? Because somebody had to say it. I'm so tired of things just being, they have to be so perfect that it doesn't allow any personality.
Mhm.
And sometimes we do go to pages and maybe the content can be good, but it's just like as soon as I get to it, I'm like, oh, there's nothing here that draws me to this person.
Yeah,
So I think people just need to keep in mind, like, do your own thing, but make sure that it actually works. So I think
yeah,
that's super, super dope. I know that you do brand strategy consulting, but you also have a Me, Myself, and God daily journal, which I think is so awesome. I
yes.
definitely want to hear more about how you can support all of the listeners and how they can find your amazing journal as well.
Yes, so that is me, myself, and God. The daily journal is sold on Amazon. So they can go to Amazon and search that. The crazy thing of how that came about, like I've always been a God girl. I always tried to infuse God in my business. I just think that that is my calling, that is my purpose. And I saw something on TikTok, and she's like, you want to make money with journals? And the way she put it on TikTok, it was so quick, so easy to do. And I said, I can do that. And I
Mhm.
had some time off from work, and it literally took me no time to do. But
Mhm.
it's something that I already practice in my daily spiritual walk with Christ, is journaling, reading scripture, trying to understand scripture, trying to apply it to my life. So I said, I just want a book where I can house all of this in one place, a place
Yeah.
where I can pour out my thoughts to God and have that relationship with Him, like how David just was so open and candid with God. I want a place where I can just write it out. I also want a place where whatever God is speaking to me or however I'm feeling, I can grab a verse and dissect that verse and see what it means to be, what God is speaking to me. Put my sermon notes in there and my Bible study notes and keep it moving. I just need one spot that I can get all my Jesus juice from. So when I need it, I can go back to my book. So that's where the Me, Myself, and God journal came into play. And like I said, it's on Amazon. If you search it, it should come up. Get it. I would be so excited. And if you guys do get it, tag me. I want to see your journey with using it, with all of that. I'm such a God girl. Like I think serving God is so dope. And when that's my whole mission too. You, like you said earlier, it's always a struggle. Like, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I not do this? Can I not do that? And I feel like God is just calling us to be, because just let him do the rest. He will do the rest. Just come to me and just be, and I got you covered. So that Me, Myself, and God journal will help you in your journey and your spiritual walk.
Yes, I love that. I definitely think we all need a place because, honey, I have like 15 different journals that I'm writing a little bit of this, and this one is just prayers to God, and this one is, so it's nice to be able to just have a space for everything. And even when it comes down to your business ideas, I still journal about those things. I still pray about those things. Like you said, God, am I doing the right thing, or what do you want me to do? What is this supposed to look like? So I think that's just perfect, a perfect way for people to begin to collect those thoughts to build successful brands and connect with God on a deeper level. So thank you for creating that, because we need it. And if you guys are inside of the Inner Circle, which is a private community, I'm definitely going to do a giveaway. Okay. I'm going to go on Amazon and get it. And we're going to do a giveaway inside of the Inner Circle community, just to give back to you all and help you be, just continue on your entrepreneurial journey and connecting with God and just being everything that God has called you to be. Yes. So this has been amazing. I thank you so much for your time, for showing up, for giving God your yes, for doing all the things to help us get our brands in order, honey. Thank you so much on today's podcast episode. It definitely was just confirmation for myself. Just, it feels good to know you're on the right track with your thinking. And hopefully everyone got some really easy ways to begin to build their brands in a successful way and not be overwhelmed. So thank you for making it easy for us to understand without killing ourselves. So we appreciate you so much. All of her information will be linked in the show notes and YouTube. Wherever you are watching this right now or listening, you'll be able to go follow her, see what she got going on, get support, get her journal, and all the things. Dominique, we want to thank you for your time. Hopefully we can get you back.
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed this. Fun. Like I talk so much, and I'm an introvert too, girl. You probably wouldn't even know. I'm feeling like, oh, I need a little nap because I didn't wear my house.
Yeah, Dominique got to go take a nap, so we gonna let her go. But we thank you, honey, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.